Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Discovering 615. I'm your host, Rob Thacker, and I'm joined with Nathan Harmening, the Executive Director, and Kobe, the Development Administrator and Lived Experience Specialist with the nonprofit organization I Am Next. Guys, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. I was excited when Jen sent me the email, so I'm like, anything we could do to help promote you guys with I Am Next. I'm excited to find out more information, but
yeah,
let's jump into it. How did you guys get to Nashville? That's the big question, I think.
So I'm from Illinois originally, born and raised. Was a musician most of my life, played instruments, played in bands, and when I was in my late 20s, decided to give it one more go and just moved down here. It was a combination of that, and I think I just had too many ex-girlfriends for one town, so I was ready to get out of there. And I came down here and gave it a good year, and just actually decided it wasn't for me. And luckily, I had started in my social work career right before I moved, so I was able to just kind of pick that up and move forward with it.
Okay. Good deal. What about you, Kobe?
So I grew up in the foster care system, but I have type 1 diabetes, so I would have to go to Vanderbilt every 3 months. So the state wouldn't really take me much farther than was reasonable to be within distance of Vanderbilt. So I've been in the Nashville area. I was born in Murfreesboro for probably my entire life, so I've always kind of orbited. Moved to Florida for a while, moved to Indiana, then moved back down again because of the diabetes thing, and then back into foster care. Got back to Murfreesboro because that's where my case was originally, then Montgomery County, blah blah blah. So always kind of just orbited around the area because my pancreas is a metaphorical anchor to Vanderbilt University.
Nashville, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, good deal. Good. So how did you guys? So diverse backgrounds from Illinois, the area.
It only gets weirder. It only
gets better.
So I'm working in a liquor store.
Okay.
He walks in, and then my coworker goes, "Hey, Kobe, aren't you a youth that aged out of foster care?" Unprompted. And then I look over to him, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And that's the beginning of the story.
That's the beginning.
That's the beginning of our story, for sure. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So just
chance encounters.
Yeah. There you go.
Fate, if you would call it that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I the liquor store that he worked at, coincidentally, was a partner of ours in some fundraising efforts.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the perks of being in a nonprofit and partnering with a liquor store is if you're into whiskey at all, you get maybe they put one back for you, and so that's what I was there to pick up my bottle. I'm a very novice collector, and it just so happened he was working, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity to meet with him and see if he needed anything. And then one conversation led to the next, and now he's guiding our decision making process. So,
oh wow!
Yeah,
from ramen to a trip to San Diego.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, that's
protege of the ED.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, that's crazy. That's a great story. Just amazing how fate, whatever you want to call it, brings everybody together on that, and all over a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I didn't even know. I'm a very new novice collector. I hadn't. I drank a lot when I was younger, and that's kind of part of the story. But then in my mid to late 30s, I got married. I started having kids, and I really didn't drink much at all. And I was at a community engagement event talking about the organization, and someone came up to me and said, "Hey, my name's Andy, and I'm into whiskey." And I was like, "Okay, what?" Yeah, homeless Andy, it turns out. And so, long story short, it turns out he runs a big group. Shout out to Melrose Barrel Pickers.
Hey.
And partners with Colonial Liquors. So shout out to those guys as well. So yeah,
they've 2401 Franklin Pike, Nashville.
Yeah, there you go. A little shameless advertising.
There you go.
Yeah.
This is sponsored by this
Yeah.
podcast is sponsored by
Right,
Whiskey
right,
Group.
yeah.
Exactly.
I need that bottle of Pappy that you have.
So like you, Nathan, and I have something similar in common. So
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of bourbon, I do occasionally like to partake of good bourbon.
100%.
Buffalo Trace.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Shout out to Buffalo Trace Group. So anyway,
Oh,
but
yeah.
yeah,
You should,
awesome.
I don't know if you're like super into it, but there's this Blue Note, like
Oh yeah.
everything Nashville or Tennessee local, fantastic.
Really?
Superior to Buffalo Trace.
Well, I'll have to check them out
And
then.
if you like rye, I would try. It's called Cardinal Rye. It's 116. It's a high, spicy, but very tingly. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
my superhero movie whiskey.
Got a
There
bottle
you
of
go.
it myself.
There you go.
Yeah,
There
let's
you go.
go.
Well,
That was my first. That was my
your first
very
little bit?
first bottle. Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
anyway.
yeah,
No, that's
we're in a
fine.
nonprofit.
Sorry.
Not,
Yeah. No, guys. No.
We work with Extension of Foster Care.
yeah.
Well, we'll jump down. We'll come out of that rabbit trail, a little rabbit hole there. But so let's get to that. Let's get to that. Great segue to I Am Next. What was the inspiration for this? How did this nonprofit come about?
Yeah.
And what are you guys doing?
I'll take it from here. So, in the state of Tennessee, the extension of foster care system is kind of abysmal insofar as the rigidity when it comes to the rules, what you have to do to maintain eligibility, what you have to do to even get help. And this is coming from kids who have grown up since they're in continuum of care. Foster care in of itself already have some pre-existing debilitations that would prevent them from having a fair start, just insofar as the fact that we don't have parents or anyone to be like, hey, can I borrow $20 for gas? Well, that, and we most often don't have cars or licenses, but that's neither here nor there. So what I Am Next really wants to do is intervene and empower that these youth aging out of foster care with all the tools, everything they need to achieve and maintain sustainable independence for now and the rest of their lives. And we will hallmark that independence when they start giving back to the same community that we've aided to them.
Okay.
So, like, let's say one of our participants enters our program. They, get housed, get a job, this, that, and third, proceed, and they have their own business now, where they're like working at a high end job or whatever you want. And then they come back and they connect with another youth, and then they offer them a mentorship. And then there's that self-repeating perpetuation that will allow for community to basically heal itself to where we don't have to work as hard because the community that we've built is effectively an engine for purification of trauma.
Okay.
If you have anything you'd like to add, please go.
Well, just a little bit of the backstory. So this all started. We're in 2024, so this started about 11 years ago. I moved to Nashville, and I started my career as a social worker in acute care, so working in essentially a mental institution for adolescent kids. I started that job because it was literally next door to my college at the time, and thought, hey, this would be a great resume builder. Never had any intention to stay in working with kids. But on day one, I loved it and realized that I kind of had a knack for it. I had the size for it, because working in residential facilities it's a tough game. And so when I moved down here, I transitioned to a different facility here, but then ultimately wound up at a company called OmniVisions.
Okay.
OmniVisions is the largest private foster care provider in the state of Tennessee. They partner exclusively with DCS. They have foster families. They have resource coordinators, etc. So my job was essentially a glorified transporter. So for kids who were from Middle Tennessee, under 18 years old, but placed in residentials all across the state, my job was to go pick them up in a pre-COVID, pre-Zoom, and pre-Teams world. I would have to bring them back for court hearings, for home passes, etc. And then when they turn 18, my job was to pick them up and take them back to the next destination. And that's where everything started. I was picking kids up who had been in, let's say, Memphis for 3 years in a residential program, and taking them back to the environment from which they came originally, that led them there in the first place, or that let them down, that failed them, taking them to other agencies, taking them to friends' houses to sleep on their couches, and in the worst cases, taking them to the homeless shelter. And so it blew my mind that we were the largest foster care provider in the state of Tennessee, and this is what we were offering our kids who were turning 18. And it just so happened that the leadership at OmniVisions was really kind of thinking the same thing. So I put together a proposal, I did a bunch of research, and I was fortunate enough to be awarded enough money from my company to start our very first independent living program, which was essentially a group home for 18 to 21-year-old males who were aged out of foster care but were enrolled in what's called extension of foster care with the state. So we were very proud of that. We worked very hard, but soon after that, we realized that that model was really not a very successful model, that we were really just repeating the cycle and giving them an experience that they've already been dealing with sometimes the majority of their lives. So it's still a group home. It's still, there's no privacy. There's really no autonomy. Like, there's a little bit more of it, but it's just kind of dangling a carrot. And so in 2018, we started to really talk about how could we approach this differently. The for-profit model, which is OmniVisions is a for-profit company. The for-profit model was very, very limited, and it was 100% dependent on the Department of Children's Services. And so if the department deems one of our kids no longer eligible for extension, then we in turn have to discharge, aka evict, that kid onto the streets. So once again, didn't make any sense to me. So that's why we started the nonprofit, because now our goal is to develop an alternative approach that has nothing to do with the state, that instead leverages community and builds true foundational support for our kids. So our belief is built on 3 pillars: housing, transportation, and community. If we can get them a safe and stable place to live through housing of our own, through rental assistance vouchers, through other types of programs that isn't time sensitive, that really gives them enough time to decouple from the state, to acclimate to what the real life is like, and that we give them a driver's license, so through a driving school that we operate, and then wrap the community around them for meaningful employment, for financial literacy, for basic needs support, mentorship, that we can actually give them a long runway to success and a much greater chance at, like Kobe said, sustainable independence. I mean, that is the main goal. The average age, according to some studies, that someone moves out of their parents' home in America today is 27 years old. And so we really want to look at this through, well, whatever the average kid gets, like, that's what we want to give our kids. Like, we want to give them an average experience. And so there will never be a day where, my kid, because he lost a job or because he maybe got into some trouble, they're up to a threshold that I would say, hey, you're no longer eligible to receive my love or my housing or my care. You've got to go. And so I want to give that same treatment to young adults aging out of the system who are experiencing what they're experiencing because of no decision that they made, no fault of their own. Gotcha. So that's in a nutshell what it is.
Gotcha. So talk a little bit about, okay, you mentioned before, both you and Kobe, aging out of the system. What is, because some people may be thinking, hearing this going, what is that exactly? Or what's the age they age out of the system? Sure. What does that entail? Those type of things.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So it just, when you turn 18, you're not a kid anymore. And
Okay.
if you're not a kid, then you're not in anybody's custody. So you've either got to accept the continuum of care, which is just more foster care, more, like Nathan mentioned earlier, extremely rigid structural environments that don't necessarily prepare you. So at the same time, like he said, was it 26, 27 when the average age that someone moves out of their parents' house?
Yeah.
We're 9 years shy of that, often emotionally stunted due to trauma. So, like, mentally, we're probably like 15, 16, 17, and we're either forced directly into the world at 18 because I guess you're legally an adult, you can fight for your country, you can fend for yourself, something. But I don't know. It's just for whatever reason, as soon as you turn 18, you're faced with this binary crossroads of don't actually get prepared or learn anything else and just continue to wait. And then that eventuality of, everything that would have happened when you were 18 will just come to pass whenever you're out of extension of care. Or figure it out your damn self and just wish you the best. So long and thanks for all the fish.
Yeah. So when there is supposed to be a system for preparing young folks to age out, and I am going to, during this conversation, have some criticisms of the state. And one thing I do just want to make sure is to preface that by saying I have very close relationships with some of the people who work in those agencies, but the state as a system and as a whole needs to be completely changed. Yeah.
Bless you.
So when you turn 17 in custody, you are supposed to experience what's called a transitional living planning meeting, which basically says, hey, you're going to be 18 in a year. Here's what we need to do to get you ready. Now, oftentimes, in a lot of cases, that meeting either never happens or it happens late, or the planning around that year is non-existent. I mean, I think I remember asking you, and you didn't even remember having it.
Right.
Or it was vague or something. But anyway,
vague, or they were just pushing for adoption.
Yeah. So when you turn 18, you have an option. You can either just go at it on your own and say bye, see you later, or you can accept what's called extension of foster care. And so it's worth noting, extension of foster care is a voluntary set of services that are available between 18 and 21 as long as you meet one of three eligibility criteria. Number one is education. So you've got to be enrolled in school full time. That was the only eligibility criteria up until a year ago. And so our kids who were graduating out of high school with a 5th, 6th grade reading level with an IEP are now being forced to go to college. And the state's paying for it, which, obviously in part comes out of tax dollars and, it was a lot of waste. But because that was the only eligibility, it was either homelessness or fail out of college, which ultimately I would argue more than 90% of folks who were enrolling in college actually did end up failing out. I've seen it, just on my own level. We've had virtually a 0% success rate with graduating traditional college. Now, a year ago, they incorporated 2 other eligibility criteria. So the second one is work 80 hours a month at any job. And then the third is be enrolled in what's called a removing barriers program. So that is any program designed to remove barriers to employment. So workforce readiness, etc. The issue is if you quit or if you get fired in any of those 3 areas and you don't get something within 30 days, then you're removed from extension. And sometimes it's rigid. I will say it's, the state, they do try to give kids as many chances as they can, but the reality is you're taking someone, just like Kobe said, out of custody, some of whom have been in custody their entire lives. And you're saying, the way I look at it is, until someone's 18th birthday, they're the victim. And they're the sad kid who's had, awful parents and has been in custody. Then all of a sudden on their 18th birthday, it's like, no, now you've got to follow these rules or you're out. And so it ends up being that roughly 900 kids a year age out of foster care in Tennessee, in Tennessee alone. And roughly half of those kids want nothing to do with extension of foster care, nothing to do with it. So they just go on and they go it alone. The other half are at least eligible for extension of foster care, and 60 to 80% of those kids actually take it, but then there's the attrition rate is extremely high. So a study that was conducted, I think 2 years ago, from the Annie E. Casey Foundation stated that 80% of kids who accept extension of foster care on their 18th birthday are gone by 19.
Wow.
And then there's
80%.
80%, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were waiting for some data to come out post the inclusion of these other eligibility criteria, but I don't think it's going to change much. I think length of stay is going to be positively affected, but I don't think ultimately that attrition is really going to change. Because it just takes it. There are some kids, and I've come across plenty of them, and I would say Kobe is one, who do pull themselves up by the bootstraps, right? Like who kind of already have that cognitive capacity.
But if I may interject, we should not make the exceptions the expectation.
Right. That was exactly my point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like there are some who get out of it, but there are many who don't and end up, 50% of the chronically homelessness population in America spent time in foster care.
Wow.
So
that was 50%?
Yes.
Yep.
Wow. You mentioned workforce. I wanted to ask this question too. Does the state or anybody look at trade schools, getting these kids involved in trade schools and giving them that opportunity as well? Or because some of these kids, not every kid, even whether foster care or even in a normal care situation, are geared towards 4-year colleges, 2-year colleges, community colleges, whatever. Some are gifted with
the tactile.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the short answer is yes, absolutely. And I will kind of back up a little bit. Even before the addition of the eligibility criteria, trade schools were an eligible school. And so, yes, 100%, like, welding, auto maintenance, for a lot of the ladies, cosmetology school, like those are options. And I think I think culturally we see just in general, in a broad sense, that the trades are, even though they're in such high demand, the kids, it's like they don't want anything to do with, going into the trades. And so I try to focus as much as I can on trades, because we were just talking about it on the way here, like home services. I mean, they're never going to go out. Like the demand will never be extinguished.
And to kind of springboard off that, especially with the genesis of AI, it's like it's only going to promote the need for those more manual, absolute skill, almost artisanal trades, like welding that require high precision, or like stuff that can't really be acclimated for with an algorithmic kind of thing.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you're always going to need your plumbers. You're always going to need electricians. You're always going to need welders. Right. You're going to need
infrastructure maintenance.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So we really try to lean into that as much as we can, and we have a great partnership with an agency called Achieve Trade School.
Okay.
And they're mostly electrician based, so they teach kids how to be electricians. And I've got a handful of kids in there right now that go there for free. They go, and this is broadly, like in the trades, half of these organizations are paying for the training.
Mm-hmm.
So that we really try to leverage
Right.
that as much as we can. But you go to Achieve Trade School, which is funded by the employer. Like employers pay Achieve Trade School to exist so that they can get the labor that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a great kind of quid pro quo relationship. Um, but yeah, we're up against. Um, there's a couple factors in there. I don't want to be too long winded, but culturally, we're in the Uber Eats era where everyone wants it, the easy way. They want it now. They want it without having to go get it. So we're battling against that in general. Number two, the, the system, even though it is needed, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, it's kind of a catch-22 because as you're in custody, um, everything is kind of not handed to you on a silver platter, but you have 10 workers for everything.
Your life is effectively dosed out.
100%, and you're medicated, like you're forced into therapy, like all of these things. And so no wonder kids who are getting out of the system, who are turning 18, don't want to go be a plumber. I mean, it's like, it makes a lot of sense. So we battle up against that as well. And then I think just overall awareness, like the trades are just not marketed. It's they're just not marketed enough. And so I do really try to lean into it as much as I can. And that's what we focus on in terms of our partnerships. And we've seen some great successes. In fact, my most successful kids are the ones who went through trade school.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And I think, and two, what I'm hearing in the trade schools, those guys, the money there is there to be had.
100%.
Lucrative, even.
It's very lucrative.
Yeah. I mean, let go back to Achieve Trade School. It's 2 days a week for 2 hours a day for 4 years. That's it. And you, after 30 to 45 days, as long as you don't miss a class, that isn't, hey, I've gotten into an accident or something, like, as long as it's an excused absence, they place you in a job, a full-time job, starting out at $17 to $18 an hour. Now that's like phase one, level one, entry level electrician. You're not really doing much. If so, you work your 40 hours, you go to school 4 hours a week, and then after 4 years, you get your journeyman's card. Yeah. And you get it all for free. You get paid to do it all. And then all of a sudden, you have your journeyman's card, and you can go out and start a business. You can do whatever you want to do. Yeah. So there is so much money on the table within the trades, and I think it's just our kids have never seen. They've never seen any of it. They don't know what that experience is like to work for your money and then let your money work for you. Like, they just don't have any of that knowledge. And so as we grow the organization, one thing we really want to incorporate, and this is kind of off subject a little bit, is how to make your money work. Like how to really start a business and be an entrepreneur, like real estate, like, the value of what is the difference between an asset and a liability, and how can you leverage those assets to buy more down the road, and all of those things. The rich dad, poor dad approach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of merit to that.
Yeah, there is. I think and obviously that's some of the what are some of the other challenges? Because you mentioned some already, but what are some of the other challenges you guys, especially with the I Am Next, and then at the same time, what are some of the things you've seen that have brought great satisfaction? And like, okay, we're on the right path here. We're encouraged by these things. What are some of those things that you guys have seen and dealt with?
You go first.
I'd say as far as like the things that have been really encouraging is just me personally, we had a move-in event for one of our properties, and just interacting with all the kids and hearing how excited they were to like have their own spaces, basically their own homes, to like put the key in and like come home, drop their bags in the chair and sit down. Because as someone who like more or less couch surfed for a good 6-7 months, and then had a really just crappy apartment, it's like that security and peace of mind of not, especially not having roommates, which might sound like a little bougie, but not having roommates in your first apartment, I feel like there's something to be said about that. Because especially for kids like myself, where we've always had to be in super close proximity. Like, a normal kid will live in a dorm for 4 years, but we've been living with four roommates in a supervised area for 5, 6 years. So it's just it's a bit of a different flavor, but hearing how excited they were to like just decorate, make it their own, that was extremely encouraging. And as far as challenges go, from just my own perspective, I would say that trust is always going to be a big thing. Just when it comes to being like a child of the system, if you look at someone like who you don't know and who you don't know if has even experienced what you've experienced, and they're telling you like, "Hey, this is what's best for you," it's kind of going to trigger that adverse response that has been developed to where, well, you don't know what's best for me because you don't even know me. So overcoming that trust and trying to assuage those inhibitions towards accepting help is probably going to be one of the most, probably the most major challenge that we face, just based on my own feelings on how I would feel if I was in their shoes.
Yeah, and I would say just to piggyback, roommates that you had no choice of.
Right.
You know,
right,
I mean,
exactly.
that's the other thing. Like, he's not picking his roommates.
Yeah.
They're being, they're being placed, as it's called, without anyone's control. So one of the challenges, the biggest challenges, is kind of also um, one of the biggest opportunities. And in Tennessee is years behind in supportive housing. We went out to San Diego last year to visit an agency called Just in Time. They have a really great community-based model, and we just went out there to look at it and see if we can get some ideas and idea share, etc. And although I understand the politics in California is very different from Tennessee, California's housing support structure is vast, and so our kids that are aging out in California, they have a much easier entry point to housing because the social safety net out there is just broad. There's many vouchers that exist, different vouchers. In Tennessee, there's virtually just one, and it's your Section 8. There's a couple other ones, but the housing in Tennessee, particularly for the homelessness population, is far behind. So that's I think challenge number one. Challenge number two is our kids, even though they are now included into kind of the HUD creates this like list of most vulnerable populations in America, and it's chronically drug addicted. It's coming out of incarceration. It's homeless, elderly, veterans, early families, and serious mental and physical health. Youth aging out of foster care, they've really just been added over the last couple of years. But all of the funding mechanisms, particularly those that are around what's called permanent supportive housing, they don't really define, or any housing that really is intended to serve the homelessness population. They don't define youth aging out as vulnerable enough to be eligible for those services. So that's been a huge challenge because even though we know that, say, 50% of the homelessness population experience foster care, 40% of young adults who age out of foster care experience homelessness by their 24th birthday. So, like, we know these statistics. We know that 25% of folks who age out of the system end up back in the system, incarcerated. We know that there are 1 out of 5 early pregnancies. We know all of these statistics, and we have this amazing opportunity to stop it in their tracks, right? Like
Right.
when someone's 18 years old, and they're given the right resources and the right support,
Right.
like imagine how we could affect those downstream statistics. Like how could we stop that 50% number? How can we lower that? Instead, most of the services that exist, they need you to be chronically homeless already, right? So those are folks that are very, very hard to serve and are very hard to initiate any sort of change because they've been living on the streets and have been chronically drug addicted and have chronic mental health issues. So that in my mind is the biggest challenge. And then just having the state, their funding stream. When I say the state, I mean DCS, Department of Children's Services. Like their funding streams are very rigid, and so it's like you've got to kind of got to the kids have to be an extension of foster care, etc. But with all of that, creates now an opportunity to create those mechanisms from the ground up, and so that's what we're trying to do. And we are working on a massive project right now called Greenview Apartments, where we are attempting to leverage state and local metro dollars and redefine what it means to essentially be vulnerable enough. So our kids come out of foster care with serious mental health issues. It's just they're not necessarily chronically homeless yet. They're not chronically drug dependent yet. So we are redefining what it means to need that support, and are hoping that the state will, the state and federal, local dollars will be given so that we can actually open up a 120 unit apartment complex in Nashville, 60 of which will be used specifically for emerging young adults. So 18 to 25 ish, who are trying to either aging out of foster care or currently experiencing homelessness, coming out of domestic violence situations, and then we're going to attack them with as much love and support as we possibly can for as long as we have to.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and you guys talked about. I mean, you hit on, you guys what you're doing for them in terms of the homes, getting them in the homes, the transportation, and I think one of the things that you mentioned earlier is community, is that third wheel or third leg of the chair, so to speak. Talk about that. How has, because community is so important. It is crucial, and especially for these young people who have come out of maybe not even experiencing community,
right,
in a positive light. Right. So how important is that, and how has those in the community received I Am Next, and talk about that.
Yeah. So I think apart from your basic needs, again, housing, it's the hierarchy there. You need shelter, you need food, you need clothing, you need your basic needs to be met. Then we start giving them tools. Outside of those things, which are priority, right? Those are your crisis needs that have to be met. I think community is everything. Like, it makes the difference. And we have been, our community model is the newest of our three-legged stool. It is the most underdeveloped. That's what we're building now. But it is amazing when you see a community member wrap their arms around these kids. I mean, it is amazing. And Kobe actually just took one of our amazing volunteers to lunch not too long ago, and she's fantastic. And so, and we all know, like, the benefit of networking,
right?
And like how, just in our professional lives, like, how important is networking to growth of, like, literally financial growth, and networking for new opportunities, networking for learning, growing your knowledge base. So if we can leverage the community the same way, I think we can have similar results. So I think it's extremely important. And like I said, it's our newest like it's always been in the vision, but now it's really starting to acclimate, and it's really starting to take on a life of its own. And as we grow, it will grow, and we're excited. So, and the project, the Greenview Apartments, is vital to that, because it will finally give us kind of a place to actually plant a flag. We don't, we're kind of a scattered site nonprofit right now. Like, we don't really have a home or a hub of our own. But if everything goes through, we will. So out of that property, we will have all of our volunteer activities. We'll have our events. We'll have workshops and our driving school, and we'll actually be able to build the community from a stable position, instead of trying to figure out how to leverage the community when we don't really have a home base.
Gotcha. So we were talking about just community, the importance of it. I want to ask this question: how has Nashville and then others around you guys embraced the I Am Next nonprofit organization?
So we're still a new organization. So I think once we have our name out there, and once we really have some very clear opportunities for the community to embrace us, based on what we've seen thus far, I think we're going to be well received, and we are going to be able to build that community. Our volunteer base right now, our partner base, is very small, because again, we're only 2 years into this, and people are very passionate, and the faith community in particular is, more and more I'm seeing churches that are devoting their missional work to foster care. And so Church of the City is a great example. They're one of our early partners, and have done some volunteer work with us. They actually donated our driver's ed car. Okay. So they gave us a 2005 Toyota Corolla. She's not a Maserati, but she gets where she needs to go. But I think in general, the awareness around youth aging out of foster care is really, really low. And when I talk to folks about it, it's like a light bulb goes off, and they're like, "Wow, I didn't even consider that being an issue." Like, you think of foster care as being essentially forever, right? Like, well, they're in the state's custody, but they don't understand that when you turn 18 years old, the game completely changes. And so, as we're able to spread that awareness through things just like this, through opportunities just like this, I think we're going to find the community is going to be at the ready to be involved, and we've seen that in small scale, and we're ready to scale that to larger, greater Nashville.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's really awesome there. And on that, let's piggyback on that a little bit more too. What are some ways people can get involved with I'm Next?
Yeah. So we've got a few opportunities. So we have a great relationship with the store. It's Brad Paisley's project.
Okay.
It's located off of 12 South. And it is essentially a grocery store for low-income folks, or for vulnerable populations. They can go there and shop essentially for free. We have a relationship built. So one of our problems is getting the kids to the store. So our number one need right now for volunteerism is going to be transportation. Helping kids who don't have a driver's license, and we can talk about the bus, but there's so many barriers with the Metro City bus. I mean, it's never on time. It's kind of dangerous. It's kind of dirty. It's all over the place. I think Kobe could attest to that.
And not even just me, but every Thursday I go to it's called the YAP, the Youth Action Board Against Homelessness, and just like hearing some of the stories that my compatriots are telling about, like the bus station, like the WeGo station, and it's again, it's a public metro transportation service in a city, an urban city at that. So you can't expect it to be peaches, daisies, and dandelions, but at the same time, like, in good faith, I would not send like a young lady on the metro bus and not be worrying about her well-being the entire time she's in transport. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Which I think is the hallmark of it not being safe for everyone, because in your own car, it's effectively like your own domicile. Like, that's your area, that's your domain, and it's almost like a safety thing, because like if you're in trouble, you can get in your car and lock the door. But like on the bus, like, and again, I might be biased, but like for the young ladies who are already like pretty vulnerable when it comes to like just being in a public space or like around dangerous, high-risk environments, I just don't feel good being like, yeah, I know you've been through a lot. Here's a bus ticket, and you'll probably see reminders of your abuser every time you go to work. But let's not worry about that.
Yeah. So yeah.
So transportation and helping us with that is paramount.
Number
Please
one.
And thank you.
Like, until we can get. So our goal is to get every youth who's aged out of foster care a driver's license. That's our vision. But then also to help them buy a car in one way or another. Until we can achieve that goal or have really like robust pipelines to achieve that goal, we are really looking for folks who may have some time to throw a kid in the back of their car and take them to the store to go grocery shopping. Or if they have a doctor's appointment, and take them over there to the doctor's appointment, and we hope that they build relationships at the same time. Like, at the end of the day, all of our volunteer opportunities are meant to build meaningful relationships. And so if you're a volunteer and you're taking 5 or 6 kids a month to the store, we hope that maybe one of those kids is really going to attach onto you. You're going to say, oh man, just like I did with Kobe at the liquor store. I mean, that was such a natural connection. And all of a sudden it was like, man, I really just want to keep getting to know him and see where we can help each other. And he's helped me grow as much as I've helped him. And I mean, it's the truth. And, we want that for our volunteers. And so helping with transportation, but also, a big low-hanging fruit is events. We have a golf tournament coming up on October 16th. It's at the Hermitage. We need volunteers to help run it, to help, go to the holes, make sure the sponsors are taken care of, make sure the players are taken care of. We'll have galas and auction events and all of those types of things. We need help with event planning, awareness planning. Like, there are plenty of opportunities. And then once we get this property and we're able to actually have a location, we need folks with expertise. So you would be a great volunteer for real estate, right? Teaching, like, how could we teach or run a workshop once a month or, once a quarter or whatever it looks like, to teach kids the value of real estate. I think that no one else is really doing that. There are financial literacy courses out there, but no one really focuses it around real estate, which I think is a mistake. My home is everything, and I am able to look at other opportunities, leverage my equity to build more financial freedom for myself. Right. And I think our kids, Kobe, anyone else, deserves to have that knowledge as well.
Absolutely.
And so we want to leverage experts in finance and real estate and employment and any other area that makes sense, in college readiness, whatever that looks like, to come in and facilitate those classes. So again, our volunteer in our community, we really look at community in a holistic sense. So even other agencies that are providing similar services are part of our community. We really just want to wrap as many folks as we can. But when our volunteer piece is the newest piece, it's still underdeveloped, and so we're just looking for anyone who wants to get involved. And you can go to www.imnext.org, and we'll set you up and get you rolling.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Well, guys, I think we've covered a lot. Do you guys got anything else that you want to add to the conversation?
Love everybody, smile always.
Love everybody, smile always.
There we go.
Love it, guys.
Yeah, and I would just say again, like, we have an opportunity here, and not only I Am Next. There are other, and let me just describe quickly what I Am Next even means.
Yeah.
So oftentimes, and Kobe again, weigh in here, but when a kid is in foster care, the amount of foster placements they go through sometimes is more than they can even count. And so the question that I think stays on their mind is always, what happens next?
Yeah. Okay.
That's it. What happens next? What am I going to go to another foster home? Is the next foster home I'm going to go to, are they going to take care of me, or are they going to disrupt me because I wanted a cell phone, or are they going to give me to a weekend foster parent so that they can take their biological family on vacation? Like all of these things that actually happen in foster care. When I turn 18 years old, what happens next? And so often the answer to that question is only drives more fear. And only perpetuates that cycle of survival mode. And so what we aim to do is turn that overwhelming question into a declaration that I am next.
Gotcha.
And so I am next, I happen next. And then the word next really symbolizes a movement. So our volunteers, I am next. So if I'm a volunteer, I'm a staff member currently, but I am next, right? Like, I represent Next and what Next represents, what their mission represents. Kobe is next. You are next for doing this. Like, we are next is a movement and a community and a whole bunch of people that have a heart for changing the momentum of the cycle of poverty, the cycle of institutionalization, the cycle of trauma, and into again, like I said earlier, an average experience. We want our kids to worry about their bills just like we do down the road, and worry about how to pay for their kids' college, instead of just accepting that they're never going to have those experiences.
If the people who are trying to destroy the world aren't taking a day off, neither should we. And if there are people to be helped, then they should be helped. And if we have the ability to help someone, then we should.
Absolutely.
With great power comes great responsibility. And if you have the means to do something, there is no reason it should not be done.
Yep. And so we love volunteers. You can donate your time. Of course, we're happy to receive any sort of financial contribution, because outside of what the state pays for, we fund all of this ourselves. And so we really rely on the community to help us provide this stuff, so that we can again move away from the state. Like, the state is not a replacement for the parent. It never will be.
Right.
It never ever will be. And there is no replacement, truly. But the community, the local community, can be a much better alternative than any sort of state that agency could ever be.
Absolutely.
When you lose a limb, you can still feel it, but at the same time, you can adapt to the prosthetic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. So again, guys, people want to find out more, where do they go to?
www.imnext.org or imnexttn on Instagram.
I am next _TN.
_TN.
On Instagram. Yeah. But
awesome,
yeah, the website is new. And so we actually just, not to be long-winded, but we just changed the name to I Am Next a month and a half ago. So it's still actually The website's under construction, but we have all of our volunteer applications and information on there. But yeah, www.imnext.org. That'll get you where you need to go.
Good deal.
Cool.
Good deal.
The surprise guest for the end of
Somebody,
the
yeah,
podcast.
somebody sneak out. Come here. Anyway,
Awesome.
Good deal, guys. Great.
All right.
Quick. Nova had to get her time in the sun, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much. Thank you all for watching Discovering 615. Until next time, see you later.
See you later. Love you. Bye.
See ya.